for those of you who haven't joined us before, the spirit behind some of these conversations is really just to get perspective. We're blessed with leaders coming out of our ears here at the Georgia Legacy Group and Keller Williams at large. And, I think it's important in times like these for us to hear from the people that have been through adversity and have come out on the other side, not just through survival, but found a way to thrive. And so I think it's really been valuable for our people to hear from maybe some people that you don't always hear from, and maybe hear some stories that you don't always hear. So I am just thrilled to share with you guys one of my mentors and one of the great guys of real estate, Mr. David Chatham. And I tell you, David, you've been in this real estate game for almost 50 years now. And I would love for you to share with the group a little bit about you. Where did you grow up and how did you find real estate? And I also want us to talk a little bit about the early days of our group at Keller Williams. So tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Andy, for hosting this today. I was born and really brought up in the North Atlanta area. I was born in the early days of my dad's building company. He started his company in 1948 down on a road called Hardeman Road off of Roswell Road, which is in the Wyuka area of northern Buckhead. I can remember those early days. It seems like we lived in every house on that street. His dad would build a house, we'd move in it, he would put it on the market, sell it. We would rent the basement from the people who bought it. He would start another house, build that, we would move there. So those early days were, especially when I was in elementary school, where we moved around all the time. But Dad really began to build his business at that time. And I guess having grown up in the business like I did, I worked around it all my life virtually. From the time I was 9 years old, I was cleaning out houses, sweeping out houses. When I got into high school, I began in the summers to work for the framing crews and different contractors, really learning the trade and the craft of the building business. Dad had just started a company called Northside Realty back in 1956, 57. Had hired a great manager by the name of Ed Isaacson to come and run that company. And as I got into high school, I would go every day and pick up the new listings and go take pictures of those houses, come back from there, run them on our copy machine at the time, put them, 3-hole punch them, put them in listing books, and distribute it to the agents. At that time, we only had, I think, 3 offices, one in Buckhead, one in Sandy Springs, and I think we had one sort of in the Dorville area. Mm-hmm. So I really grew up in the business, really loved it, got to understand it, and still love it to this day. So that's really how I got my start. In high school, we wound up moving down to the Chastain Park area. Dad had several neighborhoods going down in that area, and again, worked there. When we moved to Brookfield West up in Roswell, I worked through college in the summers on the golf course and developing those neighborhoods. So it's in my blood, and I love it and still enjoy it every day.
Yeah. So when did you start building your first house yourself?
I graduated from Georgia in late 1972 and worked with one of the crews for a while in Chatham built homes. And not long after that, Dad said, look, I want you to build out a community called Rivershore Estates, which is in Sandy Springs off of Riverside Drive, right at 285. And there was one phase left in that neighborhood. And so he just sort of threw me out there. And I had to put together my own subcontractors and crews. And we built out the last phase of Rivershore. So that would have been probably 1973. And then later, he asked me to come to Roswell, and I began a community called Saddle Creek. And I built in there for many years, about 650 homes over about a 7-year period.
Yeah. Yeah, we all know Saddle Creek well. A lot of
Good.
our agents that are probably watching this have sold homes in both River Shore Estates and Saddle Creek. That the name Chatham has been synonymous with Atlanta real estate for such a long time. Tell us a little bit about your dad and kind of what was his mission and vision for the business when he got started, and how have you guys and your family at this point continued that legacy?
Yeah, Dad really stumbled into the building business. He had come back from World War II in 1945, met my mother not long after that. They were married late 1947. Both were working downtown at the time. He worked for Fulton County as a surveyor. My mother also had a government job downtown. And they decided that they were both from this North Fulton, Roswell, Alpharetta area. And Dad decided that they wanted to build a house closer to where they worked. My mother's Uncle Bobby Hardeman owned the property where Hardeman Road is today. And they bought a lot from my Uncle Bobby. Dad promised him he would pay him for the lot as soon as they were able to get a loan to move in that house. He got the house started. Literally, he and Mother built it at nights and weekends. They brought a lot of that farm labor down to help him. He borrowed my granddad's tools. He borrowed his mule and wagons and the scoop that actually dug the basement, an old piece of metal. They would scoop the dirt out and clear the lot, dug the well by hand, bucket by bucket, did all the brickwork, the trim work, the framing, all that. And he, back in that day, the farming community, they were pretty good carpenters. They were pretty skilled at everything they did in a building trade, because they had to build all their own houses, all their own barns, all their own buildings that they used on the farm. So he started building that first house in 1948. Somebody came along, Mr. Bradford, and said, Howard, I'd really love to buy this house. Would you consider selling it? And my mother was really just devastated. I mean, she's told me this story. She completely thought, we've worked so hard for almost a year every night. She was shining the headlights of the truck down into the foundation while Dad was trying to build, and shining it at night. And the fact that somebody wanted it. And so Dad convinced her, look, I'll rent the basement there. We'll have a place to live. I'll buy a lot next door. We'll build a second house for us. So he did that. She acquiesced, and they wound up doing that. And same thing happened again. And finally, the third house, Dad was able to move in there, and Mother was able to live upstairs and have her own house. And at that time, Dad started thinking, this is pretty interesting. I'm having a lot of people come by and look at this house and look at these houses, and they're all a lot like us. They've just come back from the war. They're young families. Some of them have young children. They're all looking for a place to live, and they work, most of them downtown or in Buckhead. And he said, I wonder if I could do this, and make a living at it. He loved it. He consulted with everybody he knew back in that period of time. Everybody said you'd be crazy to quit this great government job, this steady paycheck, insurance, things that you'd never have on your own. And he'd never had growing up on the farm. And you got to remember, my granddad and 5 generations before him were all very poor sharecroppers. Didn't even own the land they tilled and worked. And this was a new idea, for my dad to step out. But he had a tremendous amount of faith, was a risk taker, always told me through all the years that, I had nothing when I started this, and if we lose it all, I'm no worse off. So that was kind of a philosophy he had, but he had a real strong faith in the Lord and believed that God would bless him if he would, really work hard in this business. So my granddad said, look, Howard, if you want to do it, I'll support you. I've been saving my money. I've got $500 we've been saving. And if you want that, you can have it and start your new business. And he said, by the way, I think Mr. Westbrook, who is, excuse me, a farmer up the street, also has been saving a little money, and he'd probably help you out as well. So Dad accumulated $1,000 from some of those farmers in that area and started his first, house, took a leave of absence from the county. They all told him he was crazy as well. But Turner McDonald, who Georgia 400 is named after, was the guy that Dad worked for back in 1947, 46. And he said, look, Howard, if you ever need to come back, there's always a place for you. So Dad left the county, stepped out, and started building. It was a day in which there were no construction loans. Every house that was started was already sold or spoken for. Somebody had a loan or some way to pay for it. So Dad had to really invent a way to build a spec house, his first speculative house. One of the first builders in Atlanta to do that. He convinced lumber companies and suppliers that, hey, if you'll let me have this lumber, I'll pay you back as soon as I can sell this house. And I really think we're going to be successful. And he just had he had a personality and a way he could get people to believe in him. And he was so persuasive and so excited. And it happened pretty much like he would envision it time after time, because there really was a huge demand after World War II for housing. Dad recognized that, and things began to happen like that. To kind of talk a little bit about the real estate brokerage business, 1956, I mentioned it earlier, Dad found himself with a lot of unsold inventory, excuse me, and he decided he needed to start his own real estate company. And so he hired about 6 ladies who were really good agents back in the day in Buckhead, and started a company called Northside Realty Associates. And immediately they would begin to be very successful, sold out all of his inventory, and were beginning to sell homes, resell homes and new homes for other people. The company grew so quickly that Dad needed to hire somebody to manage and run that business so he could continue to focus on what he really loved, which was the building business. He had been watching this guy named Ed Isaacson and was really impressed with his business savvy as well as his ability to really sell and list in the real estate market, and convinced Ed to come to work and manage Northside. And Ed was such a great compliment to my dad. He was a really tough, hard-nosed business guy with a velvet glove, and could see talent in these agents, could encourage them. My dad was a bigger picture guy, not as detailed in the day-to-day business side of that. And the two of them made a great match. They really fit well with the strengths and weaknesses of each other. Several years later, Johnny, Ed's son, came to work for us, opened up our East Cobb, at the time, our East Cobb office for Northside. And then later, I think in the late 70s, Dad asked Johnny to be the president of Northside, and Ed became the chairman. And the Isaacsons really deserve the credit for building Northside into the real powerhouse it became over the years. And then in 1991, we had an opportunity to sell the company, which later was sold to Caldwell Banker. And Dad really wanted to kind of slow down a little bit and focus on really our core business at the time of building and developing. So that's kind of how Dad got his start. Along the way, we got into a lot of other businesses. I mean, we were in the grading business with Chatham Land and Development. We were in the electrical business with Advanced Electric. We were in the plumbing business with a company called Jimco. We got into, the insurance business at Northside Insurance. And we would see a need. Dad might see a need and felt like we ought to have control of that ourselves and be able to have the service we really wanted, and would step out and start those businesses.
Wow.
So that's, that's what a lot of builders wind up doing, is getting a little more horizontally and vertically integrated. But anyway, yeah, that's how we got this thing going.
That's awesome. Tremendous entrepreneurship, right? I mean, just like you said, seeing a need and meeting a need. And And what I love, one of the things that you described is something that I talk about a lot, which is you've got a core business.
Yes.
And what happens when you put pressure on the core business, two things pop out. The first is leaders, right? You probably you're developing people that have passions, maybe in different industries or going and starting different new opportunities. The second thing that pops out is these opportunities.
Yes.
So when you put that pressure on the core business, leaders, opportunities pop out, and then a good leader, a good manager of money and resources sees how do they connect the dots, right? How do you
Yes.
start linking all these things up so that they start leaning against each other and helping each other? I love that.
Exactly.
That we could talk about that all day.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I get really excited about. So let's talk a little bit about adversity. And you've seen what, four recessions, five recessions in your lifetime. You've seen drops in the real estate market multiple times. Tell me about some of those experiences in your world.
Yeah, it's funny. It seems like we just live between recessions. I mean, we go from one to the other. Real estate is a very, very cyclical business. When I first started, working for my dad, I really started right in the middle of the 1973-74 recession. That recession was really caused by the oil crisis. At that time, there was an embargo on oil, and as you know, inflation began to kick in. It was a tough period. All these were tough periods for real estate. There was a lot of pressure on the fact that interest rates would go up, inflation would go up, banks began to have problems. They had to merge or to close. Housing was tough to find, tough to sell at that point in time. Then we had the 79, 81. These are the major recessions that I remember. I had kind of made some notes on this. The 79, 81 recession was all about inflation. It was in those last years of the Jimmy Carter administration. I remember it so well. I had started in Saddle Creek, and the prime rate went to 22.5%. And mortgage rates had gone as high as 18.5%.
And just to give some perspective on this, right? The prime rate just got cut to zero.
Yes. Anyway, it was interesting. I remember we were dealing with, at the time, a bank called CNS Bank, Citizens and Southern Bank, which was the largest bank in Atlanta back in that period. And I remember going to them and talking to them and saying, what are we going to do? I mean, people can't qualify for loans at 18%, at 16%. And I said, is there a way we could somehow buy that rate down for a period of time to at least get them in the house? We got to get rid of these houses. I mean, y'all don't want them back. We can't sell them. We're beginning to get a glut of inventory. I'll never forget, we started working together and came up with this way of buying the rate down. And by giving them upfront points, which at the time became 8, 10, 12 points, I could literally buy the rate down to zero for a period of 2 to 3 years. And then after that, it would go back to whatever the market was, and it would be fixed. So we came up with that. I'll never forget, when I was printing these signs, it said 0% interest rate. Put them on our for sale signs, our north side for sale signs back in that period. And people just started flocking to our sales office. I mean, it was one of the greatest things we'd ever done. I look back on it many times and think, I need more ideas like that.
Wow.
And within a matter of months, we sold out. And through adversity was born, and we really had never done, I don't think it had been done actually in our market. And it became, out of adversity was born some great ideas, that being one of them. You can still do that today. You can buy a rate down and fix it for a period of time, and it will help qualify the purchaser and will help sell the inventory. So that was the recession of 79 to 81.
Wow.
The other one that really sticks out in my mind was the recession of 2000 to 2002, which was the dot-com bubble. Our business at that time was doing extremely well. Any company that had the word .com at the end of it back in that day was just exploding. I can remember distinctly meeting with purchasers who would talk more about their burn rate, how much cash they were burning through every month, talk more about that than they would their business and how well it was doing. And on paper, these young guys or these .com startups could just qualify for huge loans. And we were selling houses very quickly. But in my heart, I sometimes realize, I wonder if something happens, if these guys are going to be able to keep paying, making their payments. And as you know, that bubble burst around 2001, 2002. Again, it was short-lived.
And
All three of these that I've talked about were short-lived. They were 2 to 3 years in duration, or maybe even a little less. We had learned to try to have some reserves to try to get through them. We would slash cost and try to do all the fundamentals and focus on our core business again, and ways to try to just get inventory out of and get people in these houses, lease purchases, buying down rates, whatever we could do. And there were a lot of different creative things we tried to do back then. But the Great Recession of 2007 to, I call it 2012 or 13, was just so long and so deep that it just was a depression in our business, as most people know who are probably watching this today. It, as you know, just it was a credit crisis. I never will forget, almost anybody I would meet could qualify for a mortgage. I mean, if you could fog a mirror, you could probably qualify for some type of no documentation or subprime type loan.
yeah,
Credit was so easy. Banks they were offering lines of credit to me and many other builders and developers, it was just too easy. And they never said no to a deal. I would bring them, and we were developing neighborhoods, selling lots, selling houses as fast as we could get them, on the market. Selling houses had become very easy. We all got a little bit sort of fat and happy in that period, a little lax, and began to let our business, slip a little. We overbuilt the market. And so when the subprime market started to crash, it all was like a house of cards. It all came tumbling down. If any of you if you haven't seen this movie, The Big Short, which hopefully you have, it is a great depiction of exactly what happened in this credit crisis of 2007 through 2012 or 13. As you know, banks were failing. Nearly every builder and developer I knew has just totally, went broke. The foreclosure rates and things that happened were just beyond what you could ever think. But in all these recessions, the people who could figure out a way to hang on and not give up and not throw in the towel or not declare bankruptcy or just try to hang on, were the guys who came back stronger with greater market share, greater innovation and ideas. They learned so much through these times, greater knowledge and wisdom of what it takes to get through future crises like that. So I would never want to relive it. I would never want to wish it on anybody. But looking back, I'm so thankful, that only by the grace of God were we able to get through that and really go back and focus on our core business, exactly the blocking and tackling of what we do every day, cut the fat, get lean and mean, and get through periods like that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. How have you stayed? I'm sure there were dark days. I'm sure there were times where, you questioned what you were doing. How are you able to stay positive through such negativity and tough times?
Yeah, I'm going to be very candid with this, so I hope it's okay. It was hard.
Of course.
It was extremely hard. I had days I didn't want to get out of the bed. I mean, I knew there was going to be a sheriff in my lobby serving me with some default. We were in default on a loan. I think the first thing that I determined to do was to be very honest, to communicate. I remember bringing my team together. I mean, realtors and builders and lenders, subcontractors, material folks, bringing them all in a room and saying, look, this is where we are. We've got inventory here. We've got defaults by buyers here and sellers, and things are coming apart. But here's what I want to do. I want to sit down with each of you one-on-one in the future and just go through what we have. What are the options we have? How can we get through this together? Because we were really all in it together. And we took the approach of not trying to lawyer up and sue everybody and fight everything, but instead to sit down, again, one-on-one across the table and say, this is what I have. This is how I think we can get out of it. This is what this property is worth. I think there's buyers. Here are the buyers. There's going to probably have to be a short sale here, but we'll work out what to do and try to work through that. Or here's a neighborhood. I think if you'll let me build through it, I can build product, and if you'll finance it, we can sell it. And we built through some of the things. Some of them we had to work with the lenders, do short sales, work. I still had some tails on some of those loans that we had to work off and pay back over time. But everybody had the same goal, but we communicated, I think, well. The second thing that I remember doing vividly was bringing in my staff here in the office and saying, look, we're going to have to cut this to the bone. We cut out all the fat, all the, everything we were doing that we were enjoying, all necessary, all trips, nobody could travel, all subscriptions, all country club, golf course, any kind of thing we were advertising. We just cut everything immediately. I unfortunately had to let a few people go during that period. I held on to them probably too long in some cases. I just didn't want to see people have to suffer through that. But we really cut our costs and got back to our core business, hunkered down, managed that business every day. We woke up in the morning, we focused on exactly what we were doing and the fundamentals. And I'd be less than honest if I didn't tell you this really humbled me. All of these, but the last one was really humbling. And I really called on my faith. I realized that I was helpless, pretty helpless, and only the Lord himself could help us, give us the wisdom and the grace to get through it. And then lastly, which is probably a big takeaway for hopefully folks that are watching and listening, is that I just never gave up. I just was going to fight this thing. I said, if you take my house, if you take our business, you take all of our houses, our land, our lots, that's fine. But I'm going to fight every day to do my very best to get through this. And again, I would pick my leg up off the bed and put it on the floor and say, just go in there and do the best you can and fight through this as best you can. And again, I couldn't tell you the details, but somehow, with the grace of God, we're here today.
Wow, what an amazing story. Love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So let's shift gears a little bit. Talk to me about the early days of Keller Williams. Here you had this amazing Northside Realty company that was well known, well respected. You got an opportunity in 1991 to sell the company, and you focus back on your core business. And then this Keller Williams thing comes around. Tell us about how that happened, and why'd you do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, in 1991, my dad made the decision. He'd like to slow down a little bit and get back to the basics of our building business primarily. We had an opportunity to sell Northside. We did that along with some other smaller ancillary businesses that we had. I had a non-compete. So as I continued to build and develop, I continued to use Northside. And then in 1995, my non-compete had expired and I was free to do something different. I really missed the marketing side of that business, to be able to control it, to be able to be innovative in how we sold our houses, how we promoted our product, how we promoted our brand. And I decided that I wanted to start a new marketing company. I was trying to think of who I could get to run this because we were pretty busy with our neighborhoods, and I was trying to recruit builders and develop and as well as build. And I remembered my buddy Harry Hammond. And Harry I had known earlier from Merrill Lynch relocation when he was helping us with relocation business at Northside. I had followed him over to John Whelan when he started John Whelan Realty. We stayed in close contact as he went to Arvada, and Arvada was a developer that came from Florida into the Atlanta market, and he headed up the brokerage side there. So I called Harry one day and I said, "Hey, Harry, do you have any interest in partnering with me and starting a new marketing company that would really just market my product, our houses and our neighborhoods? I've got the opportunity now to start a company, and I'd love to partner with you if you have an interest." So we met and talked about it. We already had a good bit of inventory to start the company with, so we really had a profitable opportunity right off the bat. Harry said, "Yeah, I'll take a shot at this if you'll, pay me a little bit and let me get this thing going." And frankly, business just took off and really was successful for us. We were only doing new home communities that we were developing and builders that were building within our communities at the time. And about 3 or 4 years later,
and this is Chatham Legacy, right? Is what
yes,
you're talking about.
It was Legacy Realty. Sorry, I didn't mention
Legacy
that.
Realty.
Started Legacy Realty, correct. Around probably 3, 4 years into this, I began to get a lot of people call me and say, "Look, David, we bought our house here in whatever neighborhood that you developed. Would you mind reselling our home?" Well, I knew that my builders would really be upset with me if I didn't focus every day on their product and on our communities. And I didn't want to take our legacy agents and distract them with the resales. I want them to stay focused on our new home product. So I said, "Harry, why don't we look around and see if there's maybe one of the franchise opportunities out there that we could start a second company and really be more of a general brokerage opportunity and sell resales, because we're going to get a lot of referrals as we go along here, as well as other business." So we looked at all the, Merrill Lynch, we looked at Remax, we looked at Century 21, we looked at the big major franchises that were out there. I'm trying to remember some of the others we looked at. Better Homes and Gardens, ERA, all those companies. And I got a call one day from a lady named Kay Evans. And Kay said, "Me and a guy named Bob Klinsky are starting this Southeast region for Keller Williams. It's a new company that we're bringing to Atlanta. They had already started, had a couple of offices starting here." And she said, "It's a new approach to the brokerage business, but I'd love to show it to you. And I understand you and Harry are looking to, get going in this business." So I said, "Sure." I knew Kay, from being in the business all this time. And she and Bob presented this sort of bottoms-up approach to the business, where really you had more input from the agent side than you did more corporately, as we had managed Northside and all the other most of the other traditional brokerage companies were being managed really top down. And we had all this overhead training departments and relocation departments, but this was all going to be bottoms up and more of a national footprint. So she said, "Look, I want you to go meet Gary Keller and Mo Anderson, and let's talk more about it. You had a lot of questions." So Harry and I said, "Okay." We flew to Austin, met with Gary and Mo, and spent the day, and they answered all of our questions. And the excitement and the energy of those two just captivated me. And by the time Harry and I left that day, we had signed up for the North Fulton franchise market centers. And, I thought it was going to be really easy. I thought I've got all these Northside agents that I think would be happy to come with us. They've been part of our family of businesses all these years, and I think I can build this pretty quickly. So I bought this piece of property on Windward Parkway, and there was a Marriott being constructed right next to it. And I thought I'll put my first office right there in Alpharetta, right in the middle of Alpharetta at North Point Parkway and Windward Parkway and Georgia 400. And I built this building, and we currently occupy where our North Atlanta office still resides today. And built this beautiful building, moved our offices in here, took the first floor for Keller Williams. I'll never forget, we had the ribbon cutting one day, and I dedicated this building to my father. I unveiled a portrait of my dad, cut the ribbon. I had the county officials here, the city of Alpharetta officials here. Johnny spoke. Johnny Isaacson came back and spoke. He is our senator. Great day, great food, and toured the buildings and exposed it to a lot of people. And I'll never forget, late that afternoon, everything had calmed down. I walked downstairs to the Keller Williams space. I started looking around. I'm thinking, I've got Robert Doyle and about 6 other people, and I have built this huge building. I don't have any agents. I mean, I've got like 6 people here. How in the world am I going to do this?
If you build it, they will come. That was what you were thinking, right?
That was what I was thinking. I had a great, I thought this is going to be easy. But as time would, tell, here we are, 20 years later, and this office has exploded with over 400 agents and associates and brokers here, some of the best management team and greatest salespeople, that we could ever have recruited. And then it took a while. I had to feed this office a little money to get it going. And finally, as we got traction, it really took off. As we opened Roswell and Chat North, we really learned the model of incubating a core group within this office first, within this Alpharetta office first, and then launching them into Roswell after they were up and profitable. Same thing for Chat North. We incubated and then we launched them. And that has been the model that works so well for us. So it was, it's been a great ride, a great experience. And I'm so thankful and so happy that I let Gary Keller talk me into this 20 years ago.
Well, when y'all first came, I mean, we heard the stories of Keller and you really were on the forefront of that. I mean, what were your colleagues telling you whenever you signed on the dotted line for a Keller Williams franchise? What was the chatter like?
Yeah, most of the people I would interview said, "David, what are you doing? Have you totally lost your mind? I mean, this is some kind of a Ponzi scheme, that you have a downline that's, that's supposed to, there's just no way this works. You don't have the support and your agents, your top 20% of your agents are making a lot of the major decisions for this. We've never done it that way. You hear that. We never did it that way. That's never going to work." But slowly, one by one, they begin to see it. And I've had several over the years say, "Wow, you told us it would work." And look what's happened. I mean, Keller Williams, is the largest real estate brokerage company in the world today. And the model is a great model. Yeah,
it is a great model. And, we're really proud of all 3 of the offices.
Yes.
All 3 of the offices. There's over 700 market centers within Keller Williams. All 3 of the Georgia Legacy Group market centers are in the top 100 for profit share and owner profit. And that is just such a testament to y'all's dedication in the early days, getting this thing started. None of it would have been possible without your vision. So thank you for that.
Man, hey, you're a great big part of all that, Andy. Thank you. And thanks for your leadership and the leadership of all of our management team in every office. And I'm so proud of these offices. I can't tell you. So proud. And,
they're great.
And Harry did a great job as well. I don't want to,
he sure did.
Conversation without telling you that he managed through tough times as well. He saw these sessions that I discussed and persevered with me, didn't give up. And, we had some lean, tough years. And I want to give him a lot of the credit for what's happened here. So
No doubt.
if Harry
No
happens to
doubt.
hear this or see it, I'm so appreciative of him and his leadership as well.
Yeah, same for me. So if you weren't doing this real estate thing, what would you be doing right now?
You know, it's funny, but I've always enjoyed Wall Street and watching how public companies manage and work their way through their businesses and how they grow. I've been on three, I'm currently still on one, three public company boards since I was in my 30s. And I've had a chance to kind of a front row seat to watch a lot of thinking through public companies. A lot of great things about them, a lot of things that unfortunately are very short-term thinking, to try to make your numbers every quarter and to hopefully, boost your stock price. But I've learned a lot through that, and I've always thought if I was not in the real estate business, which I love, I can't imagine not being, but I might have wound up going to work for one of the big Wall Street banks or a hedge fund group or, maybe just a stockbroker. But I love that business. I still dabble in the stock market. Watching even what's going on right now is interesting to me and why it happens. And I try to read and understand the economy and the markets in those ways. And obviously they impact our business in a big way.
No doubt. So what are you most proud of that you've accomplished thus far? And I'm in no way suggesting that it's over. But what are you most proud of right now?
If I had to probably pick something that I overarchingly am most proud of, it would probably be our family business heritage, the principles, the core values of our business, of what my father instilled within me, and now that what I have the opportunity to instill within my three sons that are all involved in Keller Williams, as well as our building and development business. To have persevered, not given up through all the recessions. And I only mentioned the major recessions today. There were many other smaller recessions that we didn't talk about. And to have, been able to be here today, 72 years later, and hopefully 72 years in the future, to be in business with so many great associates like yourself and others over the years. I think I'm most proud of that.
I love that. So I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Okay.
And I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this question because I gave you all the questions. But this is a genuine one, and it's almost better to have it off the cuff than anything else. I'd like to know what keeps you up at night and what gets you up in the morning.
Well, I think I'm probably like any business owner, I think probably the fear of a major depression, like a size that we've never known. I want to talk a minute too about this pandemic before we hang up.
Oh yeah.
A few more minutes. I think about what would it be like, again, you got to understand, I have my three sons in this business.
Yeah.
So I think more about how are they going to manage through these same types of things. What if something happens to me or one of them, and that we have a turnover with our business? It affects everybody, not just the 1,000+ associates we have at Keller Williams and my other companies, but my own personal family. And that thinking about how we hand this off, and what if there was a major catastrophe bigger than anything we've talked about today. I got a lot at stake with my families and their extended families in this business. But I'm so excited in the mornings to get up and do what I do. I mean, I love looking at property, finding a new deal, being able to visualize, what that could look like, places for people to live, have their families grow up, make great memories in those homes and neighborhoods, um, play and work and all the things we do in our homes and with our families. Um, so, I mean, I'm serious. I literally get up every day so excited to look at another opportunity. Um, just to hear about deals that some of our associates, even in this building, I run into in and out of the parking lot, how excited they are. Somebody just did a deal yesterday that I ran into, and I said, yeah, tell me about it. And they were telling me about how tough it was to get the seller to sign and this and that. And please excuse me. But that excites me, still does.
Yeah.
And I think it always will.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. So let's talk a little bit about where we are right now. What do you see? What are you doing? What advice would you have for people out there right now?
Yeah, I can tell you about past economic recessions. I kind of have been through them, understand them a little bit, but I've never lived through a pandemic. Sorry, recession like this. I mean, it's happened so quickly. So I don't want to pretend to know too much more than probably what you've heard or read regarding this. I do think it's short-lived, only because we had such a strong economy 3 weeks ago. We had, low unemployment, low interest rates, low inventory. I mean, we were down to 2 or 3 months of inventory in this market we're in.
Yep.
All the underpinnings of the economy were so strong 3 weeks ago, and yet today there's a lot of fear and concern, and there should be. I mean, we have a disease that's going around that we don't have a cure for, and the fact that our government is all in, they're passing legislation hopefully today that the president will sign, that will really put a floor underneath the banks and financial institutions, that will really shore up what we need to do. But some of the same principles apply. You just got to hang in there. You got to hunker down. You got to go back to the basics of your business. Out of this adversity is born many great things like these teleconferences we're having here today. I mean, like, having to use all types of technology now to show houses. We can't be as one-on-one, virtual tours and all the things that we're doing. We're going to learn that that's a great way to do business in the future, even after this passes. So there'll be a lot of great new things that we'll learn that will occur because of this. And I know there's a lot of people out of work, a lot of people that are scared, and I understand that. It's normal. But I think this will be short-lived. I think most of us realize that the economy is still there. People still will have jobs and be reemployed in time. But it's going to be different. It's going to be a little different. We're going to shop differently. We're going to interact differently. And we've got to learn new lessons and new ways to go about things. But don't give up. Get up. That's and right. Keep going. Just keep doing what you're doing. People will always want to buy houses. People will always want to have families. People will always want to start new lives. And we're in a business that is a fundamental business that will always be a great business. And I'm so excited to be a part of it. But just hang on, man. Hunker down. Go back to the basics. Call your purchasers, your sellers, your listings. Keep in touch with everybody. The same basic things we talked about earlier. So I think we're going to be stronger and better once again on the other side of this.
Yeah, it's really funny when I think back about I got into the business in 2008, right as the market was crashing. I was the one that was rushing into the building, and I remember just going to work. Like I didn't really know what good looked like. I didn't really know what bad looked like. I knew there was opportunity. People told me what to do, and I just did it. And again, by the grace of God, I was surrounded by people that had a lot more wisdom than me, and had the wherewithal to follow what they did. Sometimes I had no idea what I was doing. I just, they told me to jump. I just jumped.
Yeah.
And, I look back on those days, Keller Williams was probably number 3 in the market at that point. And by 2013, as the market was just really in shambles, Keller Williams became number 1 in market share for Atlanta.
Exactly.
A position we haven't relinquished. And a lot of us have been really talking about a shift, whether this is short-lived or, lasts 6 months. But either way, we're going to see a lot of pain in a lot of other brokerages. And, Keller Williams has a playbook for this. They've done it before. They're going to do it again. I have a call after this one with a mega agent from another brokerage that's scared. His brokerage isn't talking about, what happened in the last downturn. He's not trying to help him. I think there's opportunity, and we are blessed with so many different tools and training and all this within Keller Williams. And I know right now some of our associates probably feel like stuff's flying at them from every possible direction. My advice right now is for everybody to focus on a plan. And the best plan that we have right now is that shift book. The tactics within shift will help you stabilize business and get you in a position to find the motivated for as long as we can still work, as long as we can still practice real estate, who to contact, how to contact them, staying calm and having some business savvy around expenses, not getting crazy by any stretch at this point. And then when the market shifts, I've used this analogy a lot. It's kind of like you walk into you put your blanket out on the beach and you walk into the water and you're playing in the water, and all of a sudden you come out of the water and you're further down the beach than you were, right? Yeah. It's like, where's my blanket? I don't know where it went. If you'll stay in the water, and if you will, honest to goodness, if you'll just believe this stuff and take action, you're going to come out and you're going to be so far ahead. It'll be a flywheel effect. You're going to be so far ahead of your competitors, and that will be the time where you really, take advantage of what's going on. Well, David, is there anything? Thank you so much.
Oh,
is
I've
there
enjoyed
anything?
it. I've loved it.
Couple
of little things, just on those dark days, those really tough days. We're all in our homes trying to get through this period, but enjoy your families if you have family around you. Take a walk. Surprising what that does to sort of help get oxygen and fresh air, to kind of take stress off of you. Check on your family, check on your friends, be sure they're okay. It's a great time to build relationships that maybe have gone a little bit unkept over time. Be thankful for the little things. You have your health, hopefully, and you have something to eat. You have a place to sleep. I always find out in tough times, if I try to be thankful for what I know about that I have, and we have so much, even though we feel like we've lost it all at times, it's amazing how that encourages me. And hang around people that are encouragers. And there's people out there. Seek those folks out. Don't let people drag you down. And be an encourager yourself. And I want to encourage everyone who hopefully is watching or listening to this today. And we're going to get to the other side together. And we all are in this together. And let's support each other. And thanks for this opportunity today.
I love that. That reminds me of John Gordon. He's got a book called The Energy Bus. And one of the premises is you can't be stressed and grateful at the same time.
There you go.
Just think about that. You can't.
Exactly.
It's just impossible for you to have both those emotions at the same time.
You're right.
So if you're feeling stressed, go to gratitude. I love that.
Yep.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you. And thanks for giving back to our group. Thanks for your vision. It's inspiring to hear your story. And I hope I don't have to have this type of a conversation with you again anytime soon. But I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you and everything you do for me personally, as well as our group.
And it's same to you and all our management team. And I'm here if you need me. Please call. Don't hesitate to call on me. I'm happy to help.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
You take care, David.
All right. See you soon.
Be well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.